Okay, good morning. Welcome to Eastern BCP Planning Committee for Thursday, 31st of July, 2025. If we start, please, with housekeeping.
Thank you, Chair. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite. Finally, please could everyone ensure that background noise is kept to a minimum and that mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to a silent setting for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off microphones and turning the volume down completely on your laptops. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Item 1, apologies, please.
We have apologies from Councillor Tarling for this meeting, and Councillor Bernadette Nanavo is substituting.
Great, that's fine. Okay, so we'll just introduce the councillors and officers. So I'm Councillor Paul Hilliard, the chair of the committee.
I'm Councillor Marion Le Pedvin, Vice Chair of Committee and Councillor for Newtown and Heatherlands Board.
Councillor Joe Salmon for Moordown Ward.
Councillor Felicity Rice, Oakdale Ward.
Councillor Gillian Martin, Boscombe West Ward.
Councillor Matt Gillett from Tobblewoods.
Councillor Bernadette Nanavo, East Southbourne and Tuxton Ward.
Councillor Joe Clements, Penhill Ward.
Toby Slade, Muscovy and Stratton Park.
Councillor David Flagg, Grange, Burton Grange Ward.
Lawrence Williams, Councillor for Littledown and Iford.
Simon Gould, Development Management Manager.
Claire Johnston, Democratic Services Clerk to the committee.
Thank you. And we will also be joined by Adam Davies, presenting officer, later for the item. So item 3 is declarations of interest. Any? Councillor Martin.
The property's in my my ward, but I'm not predetermined.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Thank you.
And then item 4 is confirmation of the minutes of the meeting from the 3rd of July 2025. So if we've had it for a few weeks to look, is there anything to raise? Everyone happy? Agreed?
Happy.
Yeah,
agreed.
those minutes are agreed. Item 5, public issues. So after the officer presentation, we will hear any public speakers by any ward councillors who wish to speak. So that brings us to item 6, schedule of planning applications, and 6A is Boscombe Conservative Club, Haviland Road, Bournemouth. And over to Mr. Davies, please, for presentation.
Thank you, Councillor. Please let me know when you can see it on the screen.
Yes, we can see that. So after you.
Brilliant. Good morning, all. I am Adam Davies. I'm the case officer for this application. The reasons for this call-in are for 2 reasons. Contrary to the Boscombe and Folkestone neighbourhood plan, and represents overdevelopment of the area and a loss of community facility, and the mix of the proposed properties does not comply with the need for family homes. So the application before us is an outline application for the redevelopment of the site to compromise demolition of the existing building and subsequent erection of a 5-storey structure. So the new building will host mixed uses comprised of flexible commercial units at ground floor level and residential accommodation on the ground floor and the floors above. Access, layout, scale and appearance are all proposed, including details of refuse storage, cycle storage and other associated infrastructure, whilst plans show indicative areas for landscaping. However, this matter itself is a reserved matter for future determination. So the location of the site, as you can see in the heart here of Boscombe, you have Boscombe Pier and Boscombe Beach to the south, you have Bournemouth to the west, Kings Park to the north, and Folkestone to the east. So the site itself is located on the eastern boundary of Boscombe West Ward. The site currently consists of the former Boscombe Conservative Club and is bound by Haviland Road West to the west, Ashley Road to the east, and number 3 Ashley Road to the south. So the building lies within an area of mixed uses dominated by retailing. To the west lies the Sovereign Centre and ramped service access to the centre. To the north sits the main Boscombe bus station. To the east lies numbers 10 to 18 Ashley Road with ground floor commercial uses and residential apartments on upper floors. And to the immediate south, the site abuts numbers 3 and 1 Ashley Road and a pair of 2-storey commercial premises with flat accommodation above. Adjacent to those properties and served from the rear of Haviland Road West are the rear elevation and service yards of shops and flats addressed 630 to 654 Christchurch Road, fronting the nearby High Street. So the site extends approximately 0.07 hectares and is of an irregular rectangular shape. There is no existing vegetation on site. The site is not subject to any specific heritage ecological designations, and the site is located within flood zone 1, which is very low risk of surface water flooding, and there are no public rights of way within the site. So the site is within the Boscombe District Centre as designated by the core strategy. It does not have any shopping frontage designation, but the building is in a prominent gateway position within the district centre. To the north of the site is strategic allocation site SA12, comprising Boscombe bus station, and close by is site SA6 covering the Sovereign Centre and car park. So the site falls within phase 2 regeneration area of the Boscombe Town Centre master plan area. So the application relates to the building on the screen, which is a 2-storey building that wraps around the block formed by Ashley Road and Haviland Road West. The application property was built in 1904 and comprises of 2 storeys with a tile pitch roof. The lower floor comprises of exposed brickwork with a rendered finish at first floor level. The building is part of an older development in this area, and although altered over time, retains features reflective of its period, such as arched windows with keystones. It was for a considerable historic period in use as the private conservative club, this having ceased in December 2021. The applicant states that the building has remained vacant since, despite the attempts for marketing the site, no interest is reported to have been received from the potential occupants on either a freehold or leasehold basis. So it has been mentioned that the proposal would lead to a loss of community building. As per paragraphs 35 to 40 of the report, as a private conservative club, this would not fall under policy CS12. So we're now seeing on screen some views of the site looking south from the north of Boscombe bus station. Again, slightly further down Ashley Road, viewing to the west. This is from the Haviland Road West, or the rear car park facing east. This is facing north on Ashley Road. As you can see, the proposal is located here. So the character and grain of the street in this central commercial location is defined and set by a considerable height and bulk of the Sovereign Centre and the attached bus station, a multi-storey car park to the immediate north of the site. The buildings directly opposite the proposal scheme on Ashley Road are of 3 storeys in height and have shop frontages on the ground floor and are characterised by red brick and white windows. The introduction of the building style and appearance proposed here would not stand out as unduly prominent and would settle into the varied pattern of development along the stretch of road. So on screen now is the original proposal, which comprised of 2 commercial units on the ground floor with 43 residential flats, which comprised of 25 one-beds and 18 2-bedroom units across 7 storeys. This was a concern for not only the case officer, but for consultees and the public. So following a review of other buildings within the vicinity of this proposal, 5 storeys is seen as in keeping with other notable buildings in this area, as per the screen. These include the following. So you have the Sovereign Centre to the west of the proposal, which is partly 4-storey. We have 558 to 560 Christchurch Road, which is of 5 storeys in height. You have the Royal Arcade, which is 4 storeys in height. The former M&S or current Primark building, which is 3 storeys. You have 654 Christchurch Road, which is the end terrace at the end of the proposal, which is 3.5 storeys in height. And then you have the Boscombe Library, which is 5 storeys in height. and then not built as of yet, but has been granted the Hawkswood Road main car park development, where it's partly 5 stories. So as you can see on screen now is the amended proposal. So as previously mentioned, following concerns raised by the case officer, consultees and public comments regarding the density and height of the building, this application was amended and now comprises of 2 commercial units and 33 residential flats, comprising of 21 bed flats and 13 2-bedroom flats over 5 stories. So Boscombe, as a historic district centre, is widely acknowledged as having a number of varied architectural styles from different periods, all of which contribute to the character and appearance of the area. So the site's gateway location presents a perfect opportunity to showcase a high quality building that will set the standard for development and redevelopment for years to come. As such, a contemporary design approach responds positively to the local context. So the building finish is proposed as a light red brick, reconstituted stone centre sections within the top 3 floors, and cream painted timber within the ground and first floor. The use of brick and stone relates well to the character of the surrounding area at Boscombe Town Centre. The pilasters create a vertical rhythm and creates a positive interest and depth to the facade, overall responding well to policy CS41 of the core strategy and BAP2 of the neighbourhood plan. The roof of this proposal will also include PV and solar panels, whereby at least 10% of the energy to be used in the development of more than 10 dwellings will come from decentralised, renewable or low carbon sources as per policy CS2 of the core strategy. The lower levels of the building would have a strong design reference to more traditional commercial premises with high quality traditional style shop fronts proposed, which would be positive and in keeping with the requirements of policy BAP3. On screen now are the floor plans. So as previously mentioned, the 33 residential flats, which are 21 beds and 13 2-bedroom flats, range from 41.6 square metres to 64.9 square metres over 5 stories. In considering the accommodation mix, as per paragraphs 50 to 63 of this report, this proposal accommodation mix is responding to the updated Dorset and BCP housing needs assessment of 2021, which requires a higher need of 1 and 2 bedroom homes in high density areas over larger family housing as stated within BAP6, which comprises data from 2015. So the residential and commercial unit entrances are accessible at street level directly from Ashley Road, and a secondary pedestrian access to the residential unit is located to the rear of the building via the stairwell. This will double as a secondary means of escape in the event of an emergency, and a side passageway is provided with direct and level access to the storage area to enhance the ease of use. The access is secured by way of lockable door with a keypad or fob entry to ensure security. So in relation to the proposed units themselves, these have all been designed to exceed the requirements of the technical housing standards. The nationally described space standards, with all 1-bedroom units being over 39 square metres and all 2-bedroom units being over 61 square metres, also in accordance with the neighbourhood plan policy BAP7. Further to this, each of the units is of a logical shape and layout and a sensible stacking of units across all floors of the building, which has been given consideration, ensuring a high quality living space is provided for all future occupants. So views from the flat would compromise facing west towards Haverland Road West, to the north the Sovereign Shopping Centre and Boscombe Bus Station, and east towards Ashley Road towards existing commercial and residential first and second floor flats. So with regards to the outdoor amenity space, the nature of the site means that there is no outdoor space at this moment in time. This proposal introduces a green landscaped area to the west, the development for residents. As per my previous comments, landscaping is for the reserve matter application, and details of this will be discussed at that submission. 24 of the 33 flats have Juliet balconies. And the site is located a short walk from Kings Park and Churchill Gardens to the north and northwest, as well as Shelley Park and Boscombe Cliff Gardens to the south and southeast, whereas Boscombe Beach, Seafront and Promenade is within 20 minutes walk. So as per the report, the waste team are satisfied with the proposal subject to a waste management plan. The proposal includes 60 parking cycle storage facility and no parking spaces. So subject to the conditions to address points and secure delivery of facilities, the proposed access and egress arrangement for vehicles, cycles and pedestrians and general servicing would satisfy the highway user safety and the sustainable development aims of core strategy policies CS6, 16, 17, 18 and the BCP parking standards SPD. As this proposal was submitted prior to February 2024, this permission does not require the approval of a biodiversity game plan. With regards to affordable housing, policy AH1 of the Affordable Housing DPD seeks to secure the delivery of affordable housing from general market housing schemes. This applies to major developments of 10 units or more, so the policy applies to this application. Policy BAP6 refers to the provision of affordable housing in addition to the 123 to the 183 market dwellings per year. So the applicant has submitted an economic viability appraisal or EVA, which concluded that the proposed development is unable to support any affordable housing provisions or any additional Section 106 contributions towards affordable housing. Significant factors contributing to the site's overall viability issues include high construction costs and interest charges. So following a review by the DVS of the submitted EVA, the DVS has concluded that a planning policy compliance scheme is not viable. As per policy CS33 of the core strategy, as this proposal is introducing 33 new dwellings, a Section 106 contribution will be sought for the relevant heathland mitigation. Natural England have also advised the Council must consider the impact of residential development on any development within the 13.8 kilometre zone of influence of the New Forest Spa, Zac and Ramsar site, which is the case for this development. So the Council is advised that this mitigation will be completed through a Section 106 financial contribution. Just to summarise, the layout, scale and appearance of this proposed development is consistent with the evolving character of Boscombe, whilst remaining in keeping with the established high-density pattern of development along Ashley Road and respectful of the townscape and context of the area. The design has been informed by the townscape, surrounding development and the vision for Boscombe's future, and has carefully evolved to strike a balance between new and old, respecting the character, form and appearance of this context. As such, the height of the building is considered acceptable and justified in this prominent gateway location. The high quality materials, colours and textures proposed for the site have been selected by the reflective of the local vernacular. Overall, the proposal has been designed to integrate well with the local area, ensuring a sympathetic form of development which can deliver a unique character that enhances and complements the area, and one which enhances key views and adds positively to the district centre. As of 1st of April 2024, BCP Council had a housing land supply of 2.1 years against a 5-year housing requirement that includes a 20% buffer, which means the Council currently does not have a 5-year housing land supply, and as such, paragraph 11D of the MPPF is engaged. As the plan is technically considered to be out of date, the principle of presumption in favour of sustainable development is applied. So the proposed development will provide the following benefits: an introduction of 2 new commercial floor spaces in the Boscombe District Centre, provide 33 additional quality new homes in response to the most up-to-date housing figures in a highly sustainable, high-density district centre location with significant cycle parking provisions on a key transport route, thus satisfying policies CS6, 9, 13, 18, 21, 38 and 41 of the core strategy, and BAP 4, 6 and 7 of the neighbourhood plan. Regeneration of underutilised brownfield land with associated improvements to the public realm as per paragraph 125C of the MPPF, and the use of solar panels satisfying policies CS2 and 3 of the core strategy. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Davies, for the comprehensive presentation and report. So first, there are no objectors, so the applicants, please. Is it Mr.
It's Mr. Blake.
It is Mr.
Yes.
Blake. If you can come forward to the mic, please. Just press one of those to make it red. Right.
Good morning, members. My name is James Blake of Pen Park Planning Consultants, and I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant, LJB Estates, in support of this application for the redevelopment of the former Boscombe Conservative Club. Before I start, I would like to thank Mr. Adam Davies for his professionalism in handling the application and the quality of his report and presentation today. The proposal is for a mixed-use scheme with 33 residential units and 2 commercial units, and is recommended for approval by your officers. Importantly, following their input into the scheme, there are no objections to the proposal from statutory consultees. The site occupies a prominent gateway location in Boscombe Town Centre and forms part of a wider area earmarked for regeneration. It will therefore act as a catalyst for positive change in the area. The officer's report sets out key considerations for the principle of development, housing need, layout and design, impact on character and heritage, highway safety and residential amenity. On the principle, the proposal makes efficient use of previously developed land, and the loss of the existing building is considered to be acceptable. The scheme supports the general regeneration aims outlined in both core strategy and neighbourhood plan. On housing, the council currently have a significant shortfall in housing supply, and so the presumption in favour of sustainable development applies. However, even without this shortfall, the site is highly suitable for flatted residential use. The scheme will provide 21 one-bed and 12 two-bed flats, ideal for individuals or couples looking to access the housing market in a sustainable, well-connected town centre location. Given the nature of the surrounding area, the proposed housing mix is considered to be both appropriate and justified for such occupiers. In terms of layout, the design reflects the local pattern of development, matching the existing frontage building line and providing well laid out internal spaces with good natural light and outlook. Following consultation, the building height has been reduced from 7 stories to 5, and officers now consider the scale and form suitable for its prominent location. The surrounding area is of mixed character, and the design reflects this, incorporating high-quality ground floor shop fronts with contemporary-styled residential elements above. Further, the proposal incorporates appropriate materials and detailing to reflect the evolving character of the area, providing visual interest and identity. On heritage, the existing building is not listed or locally designated, and the site is not within a conservation area. No harm to nearby heritage assets has been identified either. Regarding highways, this is a car-free form of development, in line with its town centre location. The scheme includes 60 secure cycle parking spaces to encourage active travel and has excellent access to nearby public transport. On amenity, the proposal is found to have no unacceptable impacts on neighbouring properties, and future occupiers will benefit from suitable internal space, outlook and provision for waste and recycling. In summary, the application aligns with the NPPF and the core strategy. Any minor policy conflicts with the neighbourhood plan are clearly outweighed by the benefits, namely the delivery of 33 new homes and 2 ground floor commercial units in an accessible and sustainable location. The officer report concludes that the tilted balance in favour of sustainable development is triggered, and that there are no sufficient harms to justify a refusal of permission. For these reasons, I respectfully ask that you follow your officer's recommendation and vote to grant planning permission for the development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. And is it Mr. Dodd? Yep.
Great. Hello, I'm here as a member of the public just to offer my support for this development. I just want to say, while I find it disappointing that it was reduced in height from 7 stories. Otherwise, this is frankly a very good use for a dilapidated site. Like has been said, it's well located. It's in central Boscombe. It's right next to Boscombe bus station. And while not necessarily in keeping with the neighbourhood plan with family homes, it is in a town centre development where there is a need for smaller homes. As the planning officer has said, there is justification for the lack of family homes and the inclusion of more smaller homes. I think the ground floor retail will help to kind of reactivate and rejuvenate this area of the town centre, which can be a bit quieter. And I think it also offers a good kind of first step into rejuvenating Boscombe town centre as well, as has been planned for a while. In also just kind of an extra comment, just in light of the housing crisis we are in, proposals like this are really good. And as a recently graduated student, single bed homes are something that I would love to have the opportunity to move into, and particularly staying in my hometown of Bournemouth. This kind of proposal is kind of a great place that I would love to live at some point in the future. Thank you for considering it.
No, thank you for coming and your input. So we had a written statement from Councillor Canavan. Are you, Councillor Farquhar, reading that out?
No, I plan to offer Councillor Canavan's objectives, but also as the neighbouring ward councillor, this is just the other side of the event.
Right. Okay. Okay, so read the statement first, and please.
Thank you, Chair. This is a statement from Ward Councillor, Councillor Patrick Canavan, who called the item in. Unfortunately, he's unable to be here today. The statement begins. May I apologise for not being able to be with you today, but I am currently on holiday. As the papers have indicated, I called this application in some time ago. However, I want to clarify that my call-in is not the only reason this application is before you today. Following my submitting the call-in, I received representations purporting to be on behalf of the applicant, which sought to persuade me to withdraw my submission. Initially, these were telephone calls, which I reported to the Director of Planning and Transport. Later, I received an email again purporting to be on behalf of the applicant, which I again felt necessary to report to the Director of Planning and Transport, as it was clearly intended to persuade me to change my mind. I do not feel that any of these approaches were appropriate. In response, the Director kindly indicated that irrespective of whether or not I withdrew my call-in, this matter would come before you as a planning committee. You will no doubt hear that there have been adjustments to the plan since the original application, and I would just like to acknowledge the working of officers in getting us to this point. I just hope you will understand that I still do not agree with their recommendation. To clarify, I am not opposed to houses being built on this site. My objection from the outset has been the balance between one-bedroom and two-bedroom properties. I believe that the balance of 20 one-bedroom and only 13 two-bedroom properties is unreasonable. I would like to put this in some context in relation to my ward of Boscombe West. Over recent times, there have been a number of properties that have been converted into flats. These have included unused shops in Boscombe Precinct and former bank premises which have been closed. There are 60% of residents currently living in private rented accommodation. Much of that is one-bedroom flats and some is of poor quality. Additionally, there have been a number of other properties where flats above shops have been brought back into use. I stress that this is welcome, but I'm asking the committee to take into consideration what the balance of need is within my ward. Additionally, there have been a number of the data at paragraph 59 of the report is, in my view, misleading as it only relates to Boscombe West. Data for BCP shows that in terms of housing needs, there is a requirement of 48% for family homes. On any analysis, Boscombe West is one of the most deprived areas of the country. The average cost of a one-bedroom flat is £150,000. To afford a mortgage, to buy one, you would need to have an income at least £30,000 per annum. There is an unemployment rate of around 8% and only 58% of residents are in full-time employment. Therefore, the future occupants of these premises are likely to currently live outside of the ward boundary. In fact, in recent experience as anything to go by, these flats will be bought in order to rent out. You will also see from the paperwork that I referred to the loss of commercial space. This may have been misleading on my part. I was not talking about additional shops, as there is an ample supply of retail outlets in Boscombe. Indeed, some of these stand empty. What I was seeking to set out related to policy CS12 and the loss of a community facility. There should be an opportunity within this space to retain community or recreational provision that would be more in keeping with the needs and wishes of residents. Reference is made in the paperwork to the Boscombe and Folkestone Neighbourhood Plan. It is my contention that this application does not fit with the spirit or intention of that plan. This plan is very much about trying to move away from one-bedroom flats and houses of multiple occupation and to drive regeneration in Boscombe by building more family homes. I feel the report makes the point that this application is deficient in meeting the requirements of the neighbourhood plan, but once again the committee is being required to look at viability and tilted balance. This is an area of judgment, and if this developer is relying on that, then perhaps we should allow someone else to submit a better plan. On another point, I was astonished to read the comments in paragraph 43 relating phase 2 of the Boscombe regeneration. Perhaps if those of us who had been involved with this had been asked, we might have been able to offer this information as it is easily available. Finally, may I just add I am acutely aware of government policy in relation to house building. As some of you will know, I have taken every opportunity as a councillor to press the issue of building more homes across BCP. That is why I do not oppose building more houses on this site, but I want to see those houses truly meet the needs and wishes of residents, meet the needs of families and bring an element of regeneration onto what has become a rather sad-looking site. Thank you.
Thank you for that statement. Yes, Councillor Farquhar, if you'd like to come and just focus on new content, then please.
Absolutely, I'll do that. And firstly, I'd like to thank the officer for doing a very good presentation, and also the applicant. But in particular, it's always gratifying to see a member of the public come and actually speak and address the committee directly for what their individual particular needs are, particularly if they live in the area. So I won't go over the quite excellent written submission by Councillor Canavan, who quite rightly points out his experience of representing his ward and living there for quite a number of years. I'll address my comments to the actual presentation itself. Initially, it was to talk about overmassing and overdensification. The presentation sort of addresses that, or the perspective from a professional planning officer's perspective. But it's the first thing which I'll address is what was referred to as a high quality gateway building into the actual the commercial district, or the urban district of Boscombe. It's a shame that there wasn't a artist's impression, as there has been with a neighbourhood plan, which gives a very clear indication to members of the public, but also the committee, of what that vision is for a high quality gateway. The black and white drawings don't, to me, reflect that high quality gateway into an urban district. There was reference in the presentation for scale as regards our properties in the particular area, and it referred to the Sovereign Centre, which the greater bulk of that is made up of a multi-storey car park. It also referred to some properties at the other end of the Boscombe precinct, which were 3 to 3.5 stories high. I really appreciate and accept that this is being reduced from 7 to 5, but the only building which was of scale, which was mentioned in the officer's report, was that which is alongside the Boscombe Library. And speaking as somebody who passes that building pretty much every day, I think I would be alone that it is not necessarily reflective of the high quality gateway into an urban district, because it condenses the flats, and the outward fabrication is not fabulous. So the other thing which I challenge is that without the vision or the artist's impression, is that it was this transition between new and old. As we've identified that most of the urban district, and this building included, is of the Victorian age and the early Edwardian age. And I would challenge the fact that a building of this particular nature as a gateway into the urban district, which is Victorian in its outlook, may well respond to the updated housing mix compared to the new Dorset and BCP housing needs plan. However, once again, we find that the densification is such that it is not viable. So we have an uneven mix, which is contrary to the neighbourhood plan, which was responded to by the residents, and they voted in almost a 94 percentile to say that they accept the need for family homes. And the mix there, just to remind the committee, was 50% 3 bedrooms, 40% 2 bedrooms, and only 10% 1 bedrooms. As you can see from the housing mix, with 21 1 bedrooms and 13 2 beds, that is way out of what the residents actually voted for in a referendum in October of 2019. So thank you very much, Chair, and I hope that's of use to the committee.
Thank you, Councillor. If you could just turn the mic off before you go.
Certainly.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Farquhar. Okay, so Mr. Davies, is there anything you wanted to come back on, first of all, from what you've heard from the speakers? To clarify anything?
Yes, I understand from the building's perspective. However, when you look at, with regards to this image on screen, the 5 stories actually still sits below the vision of the 3.5 stories at the end terrace. So with regards to the height, it is seen as acceptable. Yeah, that's all that comes to mind at the minute.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'll open up to questions from councillors. Councillor Salmon.
I always worry about overturning a neighbourhood plan because it's only the local plan that's out of date. It's not the neighbourhood plan that's out of date. That still applies. I struggle to see the justification in the document beyond this is more houses. Is there something I'm missing in the report? Something beyond some kind of assessment that shows, oh yes, there is a desperate need for these one-bed flats?
Mr. Davies, is it around the paragraphs 52? If you can expand on the SMAR and other assessments.
Of course, sorry, I've got the so on screen now is the BAP 6 requirement from 2015, and then the Dorset and BCP housing needs assessment from 2021 with the increased need.
Okay, sure, yeah. So Councillor, Mr. Gould first.
Yeah, just to pick up on that point from Councillor Farquhar, what Mr. Adams is trying to say is that that's the evidential base that then went into formulating the policies that went into the Boscombe and Folkestone neighbourhood plan. So whilst the Boscombe and Folkestone neighbourhood plan was adopted, I forget the year, was it 2019? Yeah, so the evidential base that underpinned some of the policies was actually from 2015.
Councillor Salmon.
So just to be clear, we're being asked to overturn the neighbourhood plan, and regardless of the evidence base that was used to draw up that neighbourhood plan, that it was massively supported by the public. I remember the process. It's the information from paragraph 51 to 54. That's what we're being asked to take as enough evidence to overturn BAP 6. That's it. There's nothing else in the report that I'm missing. I guess it covers it again in the summary, but that is everything we've got to overturn BAP 6.
That's it, yeah. Councillor Rice.
On a separate matter, the officer spoke about, I think he mentioned in his presentation that this site had solar panels to provide enough energy for 10% of 10 or more of the properties. Just wanted clarification on that. I assumed it was going to be 10% of the whole site.
Yeah, sorry, if it comes into effect, if a site has 10 or more buildings on site, then that's correct, yeah.
Okay, so I maybe misunderstood. So it covers 10% of all of the energy uses of the whole building.
That's correct. Sorry, I'll blame the accent for that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gillett.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to make sure I completely understand the relationship with the neighbourhood plan. Because the numbers that we've got up there are BCP housing assessments, but obviously within the context of a neighbourhood plan, you've got the 50% 3-bed, 40% 2-bed, and 10% as 1-bed. So I just trying to understand how is the BCP wide data relevant to the neighbourhood plan from that perspective? Because obviously what we should have is data within the context of the Boscombe and Folkestone neighbourhood plan. I would have thought. It's my question.
No, that's fine, and I think it does go into that. I think is it section 59 where it does specifically call out the Bournemouth West ward figures, where there's a housing register where there's 442 applicants on the register, 230, 52% of those require 1-bed, 24%, 107 of those require 2-bed. So again, that's supporting, I think, the need. Did you want to say any more? No. Right. Any Councillor Martin?
Hi, just random question. Sounds random, but who will be my concern is moving if we do allow it, how it's going to look in a few years' time. You know, not now when it's nice and shiny and brand new, but who's going to maintain it? Because so what I'm really asking is, are there arrangements for, you know, is the freeholder, the current owners, are they going to sell a share of the freehold? Because as far as I know, if flats are above commercial, you don't have the right to, if you lease the flat above a commercial property, you don't have the right to buy the freehold like you would in another property. So have we got arrangements for making sure that this place is looked after, or is it going to be sold as a share of freehold?
So, Mr. Davis, do you know if are they just going to be leasehold with a management company, or do you know that status?
I haven't got that status, I'm afraid.
Right. Yeah. Again, it is obviously we're looking at the application now. Unfortunately, we don't cover the.
It's not a planning issue, but I've long said there are lots of things long term should be a planning issue. You know, like if buildings are rendered, they look a mess in a few years' time, but I keep being ignored. Probably I have to go to Parliament for it. Thanks.
Councillor Salmon.
So, because I think what's going to come up in the debate is BAP6, I just want to check at paragraph 54, we've got a statement from the developer. In general, development and infrastructure costs are increased for 3-bedroom family homes, and as a result, residential land values are typically lower for larger units than smaller units as a result, and given their site area, in order to make this development viable, there are a higher number of 1-bedroom, 1-person units than set out in the neighbourhood policy BAP6. Is there any additional documentation that was supplied to back up that claim, or are we just being asked to take the developer's word for it that actually building the family homes that are desperately needed in Boscombe simply isn't viable?
Mr. Davies, I know you covered off about the district valuer. Is there anything on that relating to the housing mix and viability?
Oh, I'd have to do a further review of that question, sorry.
Because that assumption or that statement from the developer, I can't see the evidence to back that statement up. We're being told here that 3-bedroom wouldn't be possible on this site, thus why it's not adhering to BAP6, and that only these 1-bedroom sites would be viable. Given that's such a conflict with BAP6, I want to be really confident going into the debate that that is correct, that BAP6 can be ignored, and that even if our local plan wasn't out of date, we would still be happy overturning BAP6, because this site is unique in that only 64% 1-bedroom properties are financially viable.
Okay, Mr. Davies, I'm just trying to find that paragraph on the affordable. So yeah, 144 and 145 just cover it on basic terms. But again, when we see the viability, how much detail do we see of a viability assessment? Do we just take it for read that?
No, the report is obviously read by myself and discussed with the DVS, and then there's a lot of calculations involved that go through it, and then we're given a summary. So I'm just going to have a quick look now to see if I can answer the councillor's question.
We just have a pause for that information.
Chair.
Yes, that's
There
right.
is a statement at para 53. Not sure whether that's part and parcel of what's being discussed at the moment.
Because I think there's the discussion about the balance and the demand, but what I'm interested in is the statement that's been made that says 3 bedrooms wouldn't be financially viable on the site. There's no way that could be delivered. It has to be a high concentration of 1-bedroom flats. And at the moment, the only evidence I can see for that is a statement from the developer themselves rather than anything that has been submitted and independently verified. Maybe it is covered in the affordability section, you know, where we've looked at affordable housing, but I think that will just be looking at, with the scheme as is there the capacity for more affordable housing? That won't be going, could this scheme have more 3-bedroom houses? And I just want to make sure before we go into the debate whether we simply take it as read that yes, 3-bedroom sites wouldn't be viable, or if that is just something the developer has said and not something that has been confirmed by our officers. I think it's an important point.
Okay, we'll just wait for Mr. Davies.
Right, so from the report's perspective, the DVS, and I've discussed, it only goes into what the submission is, which is the 1 2-bed flats, and does not discuss what the council has queried with regards to the 3-bed flats. So what I'm going to do now is, if you don't mind, I'm just going to have a look at the report that was submitted with regards to rather it just being worded in to see the data that was backed up. So if you're willing to bear with me, I'm just going to have a quick look at that as well.
Yeah, that'd be useful. Thank you.
Right, so with the information that I have in front of me, yeah, there's no information within the submitted commercial report or the DVS report that I've gone over with them with regards to the question that the councillors asked on 3 beds. So the statement written is just the statement that the applicant's obviously given.
Okay, thank you. So to Councillor
I hope that makes sense.
we are taking it for that the developer is making that statement, and they've done that viability assessment, and that's what they've come up with. We've obviously had the pre-app, so it was a 7-storey with 43, and now it's down to 5-storey with 33 properties, but it is that reliance on the developer. So if there's no further questions, we shall go to the debate then. I think for me, the balancing statements towards the end of a report sum up where we are finding the position that, yes, clearly BAP 6, the housing mix, the application is at odds with that. But we do have a housing need in this area. The data on Bournemouth West in particular is focusing on that there is a need for 1 and 2 bed properties for the housing register. So for me, it ticks many boxes. It would be nice if it was 100% policy compliant. More and more wards are bringing neighbourhood plans forward, and you hope that the neighbourhood plan is obviously retaining the character and setting the objectives for the residents. But as the report says, the national policy framework is at the top of the assessment, and housing need is at the top of assessment. So whilst it's nice to have an ideal planning a mix of properties, if, as we're hearing, it's not viable on this plot of land in particular, I think the plot of land behind the library, behind the shops, will see some family 3-bed houses there. But this corner block, obviously, we have what we're presented. So I feel that there is no to refuse it. So I would be in favour. Okay, we're just having a brief adjournment while we have a clarification on a matter. So we're freezing the recording.
You're back live, Chair.
Okay, so sorry for that adjournment. We have found that there was an objector had wanted to speak at this meeting, Ms. Flynn. So we've spoken to the applicant and the supporter. They've agreed to allow Ms. Flynn to speak for up to 7 minutes. They will have an additional 2 minutes if required after Ms. Flynn. So Ms. Flynn, if you want to speak now, thank you.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to raise the parking as a concern. So
Okay.
as you come out of the road. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You might want to take this your picture off just to add the bandwidth, so because you did break up. Okay, you carry on.
Okay, so yeah, I live in Haviland Road, which is the one when you come out of my road, the Conservative Club's right in front of you. And I'm just concerned about the lack of parking. I know that the area has good transport links and there is going to be provided bike parking, but I think the reality is the majority of people in this area do need to drive to get to jobs and things like that. I myself work out of the area, my partner works outside of the area. And I think to not be providing any parking is just really short-sighted, and I think it's denying the fact that like people have cars, and the problem is there already is a parking issue in the area. It's near impossible to get parked in the sort of 5 or 6 roads in the block that I'm in, which is where people who live in that development will be parking. We've asked about permits, it's been ignored, or we were told that it would just exacerbate the problem and move the problem elsewhere. So I just think, you know, if there's 33 or 43 homes in this development, it is going to bring cars to the area. Like what was said earlier about people, it's not affordable housing, so a lot of people will be coming out from outside of the area, because the majority of people in the area can't afford to live in the area and be paying any more. I just think parking needs to be considered. I just think it's crazy that hasn't been considered, or it's been ignored. And you know, the reality is not everyone can get the bus or cycle. So yeah, that was the main thing. Additionally, the height, it's a lot higher than everything else in the area. There's one place that's 5 stories or something I saw on the plans earlier I was watching. 5 stories is still significantly bigger than other stuff in the area. 7 was just insane, but 5 is still too big. And I just think this feels like it's an opportunity to try and make loads of money out of residents of Boscombe. So yeah, thanks.
Okay, Ms. Flynn, thank you for the time and getting your points across. So, Mr. Blake or Mr. Dodd, did you want to have an opportunity to 2 minutes? Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, on the matter of parking, obviously the site is within Zone A, and the council's adopted parking standards do not call for any parking provisions to be provided within Zone A areas. If parking were to then be proposed, it would be contrary to the adopted standards, so that is why it has not been proposed in this instance. But we have fully complied with the requirement for cycle parking spaces, which is also a policy requirement as part of the adopted standards. On the matter of height, I think that's been fairly well discussed. It's been reduced from what was originally proposed, and it's now been found to be in keeping with the area and fully in context with the surrounding character of the area. So yeah, that's all on that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blake. And Mr. Davies, did you want to come back on anything which has been said then?
No, I mean, the applicant's already explained that it's in Zone A, it's within 400 metres of the district centre or main centre. Within the parking SPD, there's no need to supply any car park spaces. So you know, this has been considered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And councillors, is there any further questions you wanted to cover? I think Mr. Gould wanted to come back on Councillor Salmon's question about the family.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, a bit like Mr. Davies, when Councillor Salmon raised the point about the 3-bed units and why the scheme isn't bringing any forward, I was having a quick look in the background at the economic viability report. There's nothing I can see at that quick glance that shows that the scheme has been tested in terms of viability about delivery of 3-bed units. However, I've also had a quick look at the planning statement, which has been provided on behalf of the applicant by Ken Park Planning Consultancy. And there's text in there that seeks to explain why. If, Chair, you wanted me to, I could spend a few moments just reading through that. It's going to take me a couple of minutes, but if you wanted to and it helped, I can do that. So I'll pick this issue sort of comes up here initially in paragraph 7.12 of the planning statement, and I'll start halfway through that paragraph because the preceding text talks about the scheme when it was a 25 1-bed and 18 2-bed scheme, obviously before it was amended. So to quote, so given the size of the site, however, it is not considered practical to provide 3-bedroom units. Therefore, a 1- and 2-bed unit scheme has been pursued as more appropriate. The number of 2-bed units is slightly higher than the policy requirement of 40%. In general, development and infrastructure costs are increased for 3-bed family homes, and resultant residential land values are typically lower for larger units than smaller units. As a result, and given the site area, in order to make the development viable, there are a number of 1-bed person units. There is a higher number of 1-bed person units than set out in the Neighbourhood Plan Policy BAP 6. The proposed development's mix of units has been further informed by the Dorset and BCP Housing Needs Assessment November 21, which provides a more up-to-date assessment of the area's housing needs than the adopted neighbourhood plan. The borough-wide assessment provides a detailed analysis of housing need linked with long-term demographic change. In Chapter 9, Family Households and the Appropriate Mix of Housing, the assessment identifies a recommended mix across the entire borough with the broad focus of the size of homes required for different tenure groups. No overall justification is set out for different housing mixes for different sub-areas of the borough, although it is noteworthy to consider paragraph 9.39, and it quotes, "There may be a case on a site-by-site basis or at a specific point in time for some minor adjustments. Suggested mix is broken down by tenure and in essence requires a higher percentage figure of 1-bed units than the 10% figure in the Neighbourhood Plan Policy BAP 6 and a lower percentage figure of 3-bed family units." There's then a table in the report that sets out 1-bed, 2-bed, comparing the figure in the neighbourhood plan versus the other report that I've referred to. It is acknowledged that the proposed development has a higher number of 1-bed units than Neighbourhood Plan Policy BAP 6, and the 2021 Housing Needs Assessment figures call for. However, the number of 2-bed units is largely in keeping with the adopted policy and assessment figures. It is noted that the 2021 Housing Needs Assessment figures do not automatically supersede the adopted Neighbourhood Plan Policy requirements, but they are based on more up-to-date information which has been robustly tested. In addition, paragraph 9.39 identifies support for minor adjustments of mixes based on a case-by-case basis. I'm nearly there. At paragraph 9.32, as paragraph 9.32 notes, the site location and character of an area are relevant considerations in determining housing mix. In this case, the application site occupies an important gateway location into the heart of the district centre, close to services, facilities and options for sustainable travel. The location will therefore be attractive to young people, brackets singles and or couples, without children who are seeking access to the housing market. As a result, 1-bed units in this location will not only offer attractive forms of accommodation to potential future occupiers, but wholly appropriate forms of accommodation too. As further justification for the proposed mix of units, as of September 23, data from the BCP Housing Register reveals that for the Boscombe West Ward, where the site is located, there were some 442 applicants on the register, with 230, that's 52% of these applicants requesting one-bed units and a further 107, 24%, requesting two-bed units. In summary, the proposed development will help to deliver a mixed and balanced community as set out in the NPPF 2023 and the aims of the core strategy policy CS21. Overall, there will be a general compliance with the neighbourhood plan policy BAP6 in that justification is provided as to why different housing size mix is put forward based on the more recent housing needs assessment and evidenced by the housing register data. As for the council's inability to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply position and the neighbourhood plan's age, neighbourhood plan policy BAP6 is afforded a reduced rate and the tilted balance is engaged. Right, the only other point I just wanted to raise, Chair, it was just to pick up on a point that Councillor Gillett raised earlier in the questions session, that there was reference to, I think there was reference to like the 5-year housing land supply, and that, you know, if the policies are out of date, then they can be switched off in the development plan. And I think Councillor Gillett said that that would obviously refer to the core strategy or the district-wide local plan, but he did say that it wouldn't apply to the neighbourhood plan. That's not true, actually. All of those documents sit under the umbrella of what's called the development plan. So if you're applying the 5-year housing land supply test and the tilted balance, then there is an argument to say that the housing policies in all of those documents are out of date. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gilfer.
Thank you. I've got issues to particularly concentrate on. I'm not actually enforcing that housing issue. I am often see looking at the affordable housing, and the reasons given in the planning document were high construction costs and interest rates. Now, to me, that will apply to just about every single development we get put before us. So, as I've said before, I think the valuation system for affordable housing needs serious revision, but that's not for us to do at the moment. We're stuck with it. And if the district valuer says it's not viable, we have to accept that. We may be puzzled. I'm extremely puzzled how a large number of small flats on a comparatively tight site with no wasted space on parking or affordable house, amenity space or anything like that cannot be viable. But if we're told it's not viable, we have to accept it, unfortunately. The other one is the housing balance, and there's anyone who's listened in on this committee before will know that I often talk about the high number of one-bed flats we're being asked to approve. But I have to say, in this particular instance, in this location, I think one-bed flats are appropriate. My main concern is that they're one-bed, one-person flats, because I think they would be crying out and people will want to live there as starter homes, as to get on the housing ladder, as very often as couples. Obviously they can accept that they live in a flat that's below the recommended size, but we could be opening up for people to have to live in substandard space accommodation. I would rather they were one bed, or a proportion of them were one bed, 2-person flats, therefore slightly bigger. But BAP6, if it still applies and all that sort of thing, I don't think it can apply to every single development. For instance, the Hawkwood Road car park development that we approved not long ago, very close by, the other side of Christchurch Road, is it was nearly 50% 3-bed places. So to some extent, it redresses the balance. And I was also thinking, if we ever get a lovely proposal for a development that is family homes, 2, 3, 4 bed, are we going to insist on 1-bed places in there? I would expect not. So across developments, it's got to balance out. Now, who can monitor that, who can insist on that is a different matter. But I don't see that we can say every single development has got to be exactly these proportions. So in this case, in this location, I'm happy to go with a high proportion of 1-bed flats.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Salmon?
So I'm not sure I would agree with some of the statements there. I don't think it's this committee's job to just take as read everything that's put before us. I think it's really important that we examine the evidence base. And it seems like it's the planning, design and access statement from Ken Park that we're being asked to take as justification for overturning BPA 6, and the statement in there that it wouldn't be practical to provide for 3-bed homes. Now, looking at that document, it does attempt to justify the lack of 3-bed homes, but it does so in a largely narrative way. So it doesn't offer a dimensional study, doesn't offer an alternative layout showing why larger flats would not fit. It doesn't give any... there simply isn't a statistical rigour that I would expect when I'm being asked to dismiss the neighbourhood plan, which is an important document. I think what Councillor Farquhar said about the local public support for that neighbourhood plan is important. I can't see anything submitted by the developer that warrants setting aside BPA 6. Housing needs assessment shows that actually for Boscombe, the need is overwhelmingly for family-sized homes. And actually the people who are really struggling at the moment to get on the housing ladder are people who cannot move into a 1-bed house. They are people who have rented in a larger property with children. Where on earth can they buy? You know, where on earth can they go? One thing stressed by the neighbourhood plan for Boscombe is that there is almost an overabundance of 1-bed units relative to the lack of family homes. And actually that in itself is a problem. And one of the reasons BPA 6 exists is to address that problem. And I think it's important to remember that tilted balance only favours sustainable development, not any development. Even with our local plan out of date, it is not a blank check for developers to do absolutely anything they want. And I think until we can see an open book appraisal that demonstrates that even a modest proportion of 3-bed flats would, via the scheme, unviable, I think overturning the neighbourhood plan would be a mistake, especially when we've heard from ward councillors that they also object. I think that would be incredibly unsound. I don't like going against officer recommendation, but I would say that this isn't a concrete officer recommendation. This very much stresses this is a tilted balance matter. And I cannot see enough evidence submitted by the developer to just tear up BPA 6. I think you've got to look at the planning, design and access statement. You've got to look at that, and that is a narrative justification without the hard stats and a rigour that I would expect to be that says, no, you cannot build a 3-bed flat there. I bet you could. I absolutely bet you could.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've got a few concerns because the gentleman who was in favour of this, talking about 1-bedroom flats, I totally agree that it's nice if you to start off with a 1-bedroom place, even if you're a couple, although it's small, it gives you a start. My concern is because it's above commercial, what people might not realise is if you're going to buy somewhere above commercial, your mortgage options are quite limited. Not every lender will let you have a mortgage above commercial property. And so, like, if you've got you start off as a couple and then you want to expand your family, you're sort of in this one bedroom place that you probably can't sell that easily, you can't sell on. So that's one concern of mine, because actually I think as well we should be having at least more 2-bedroom places, because we are living in a declining population at the moment where, you know, we need people to have bigger families. We need to start families earlier, to keep the nation going. So I think for those reasons, I'm against all the 1-bedroom flats. The other thing as well is 1-bedroom flats are really attract buy-to-let more than 2-bedroom, particularly as we've got the Rental Reform Act coming in, which will actively, because of the Rental Reform Act, it will actually discourage family homes to be unavailable for, it will actively encourage landlords to buy 1-bedroom flats as opposed to family homes to rent them out privately, because people tend to be more transient in a 1-bedroom place than in a family home, and so the Rental Reform Act doesn't really favour family homes to rent. It favours 1-bedroom places. So then you're actually building a building that will be ripe for buy-to-lets, really, which is then going to have a very transient population. That would be my worry. Having said that, in favour of it, I do actually quite like the design. It works. We've got round the corner on Christchurch Road, there's modern shops with flats above, all modern buildings. That works really, really well. They're very attractive looking. I quite like those, and I do like, I'm always banging on about it, I do like the fact they've got balconies, even if they're just Juliet balconies. I think that's really important in flats. So I'm a bit both ways, but yeah, but it will definitely will attract buy-to-lets and possibly Airbnbs.
Thank you. Councillor Gillett.
Yeah, it was just very quickly. I think obviously in respect to the parking, I know that it's not. It doesn't form. It's compliant with the planning. But in terms of my experience of visiting the site, right next to it is the Sovereign car park, Sovereign Centre car park, and they actually have monthly passes and annual passes in there, and it seemed relatively empty, at least when I was there. And they've even got these things, you can even rent an electric charging point for those available that you can do. And it's not expensive, about £300 for a year or £50 if you wanted a monthly. So I don't think, actually, I know the Sovereign Centre could be knocked down, but actually it does provide an opportunity for parking. It's literally right next door to where these flats are. So I think, by bearing that in mind, I like what the officer put together a really good report on this. I appreciate that there are concerns, but my feeling is that he's got it right on this one, and I support what he's put forward.
Thank you for that. Councillor Cummins.
Thank you, Chair. I totally agree with everything that Councillor Gillett has just said, and also with the Vice Chair on everything that she said as well. I don't know about the whole mortgage thing, so I can't comment on that. I don't know anything about that. I'm not sure that's a consideration for a planning decision, although it is certainly an important issue. But in terms of the requirement for 1-bedroom properties, whether rented or purchased, our company employs a lot of young people, and they are currently, I have several young people who are currently looking for 1-bedroom accommodation, and it's in very, very short supply, and they go very quickly. If you don't go and see it the day it comes on the market for rental, a couple of days later, you've lost your opportunity. So I think there is a demand for 1-bedroom for young working people. And I think that in that particular area, as Councillor Lepodovan said previously, it's completely relevant and probably desirable, in fact. Regarding parking, personally, I think our transport policy is not right. I don't agree with a lot of it. I think we do need more parking than we're allocating for new builds, and it'll be interesting to see how that pans out in the future. Although I do get it that with this particular building, it's right next to the bus station, and public transport is good in that area. But as the objector said previously, you know, not everybody works within those transport links vicinities. So, you know, if you're working, I don't know, somewhere out of town, you possibly do need a car, but that's something that you know, can't be changed due to our policies. So yeah, I think it's a good proposal, this, and I'm happy to support it.
Okay, was that a proposal or? Yeah.
No, sorry, I'm happy to support the application.
Okay. Sorry. Any other debate?
Do you want a motion? I'm willing to propose that we accept and agree to this proposal.
Okay, thank you for that. And Councillor Clements, your second that. Any Councillor Rice?
I just have one comment, since there's a representative from the developers here. Just with regards to the cycle parking, on the images, it only represents a specific type of cycle user, which is not what we're looking for, I suppose. It is in keeping with the parking requirements and the cycle parking requirements, but ideally we would also be looking for spaces whereby, especially since there's 2-bedroom flats, you're looking at cargo bikes where you're carrying the child on the front, and so enabling the parking to allow those type of bicycles to cycles to be able to get in and out of the doorways is a big concern when building it, and I would highly recommend having a go on one and using one, and also tricycles, and also people that use a wheelchair being able to use a cycle adaptation to that as well, in terms of being able to get in and out of the doors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other last debate? Okay, so we've got a proposal to grant as set out by Councillor Previn, seconded by Councillor Clements. So if you want to support that grant, if show now.
Officer want to come in? No?
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in favour.
And those against?
And that's 1 against.
And abstentions? All clear. So that is approved as set out. Thank you for that. That's item 6A. If we move to item 7, this is just a appeal summary for information purposes. So the main takeaway is that Bournemouth BCP Council is performing within the targets for quality planning decisions. The report is for noting. Was there any comments by anyone? No, so all agreed to note that report? Okay, thank you. So that brings the meeting to a close then. Thank you for your time and patience. All off? All off.